Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a Linktree clone in HTML, CSS, and the tiniest bit of JavaScript if you want to take your project to the next level. Don't worry if you don't know that much JavaScript. It is only the tiniest bit, and it's going to allow us to copy text onto your clipboard on your computer. So it's pretty cool, and I'm really excited to show you how to do this, especially when the share button is actually nested in another button that links us somewhere else. So we're going to be doing a lot of preventing default actions happening. If you're interested in learning how to do this, please do watch this awesome video, as it's really going to clear a few things up for you. Now, before we get going, a quick word from our wonderful sponsors, thanks to whom this channel exists. Give it up for Talent.io. Please give them some love if you like what they have to offer. In the aim to help you know your worth, Talent.io have recently created a developer salary report so that you can check if your salary is what it should be based on national averages. You can check what countries pay the most, what salary you should expect, and it gives you the stats you need for your next negotiation. If you would like this report, please click on the track link in the video description below and give your email if you think that is a fair exchange. Clicking on the track link will help me tell them how this partnership did, and in turn help out this channel, so I really appreciate that. Okay, so great. By the end of this video, you will have this Linktree clone that is responsive, so check it out. It is changing size and constraining to a max width when we hit a certain browser width, and we can click on each of the tabs and it will take us to a desired tab, as well as copy the text to that link if we want. And we're going to be learning how to work with SVGs as well. So all of these icons on here are SVGs with paths. So what are we waiting for? Let's do it. I'm going to take a super beginner approach, and please take this project, make it your own, take it to the next level, style it up as you want. That part is totally up to you. That's why I'm showing you how and giving you the tools to really customize your own clone Linktree page. Okay, so let's do it. First off, let's start off on our IDEs. I am using WebStorm. However, if you're using whatever IDE you wish, that's absolutely fine. Just go ahead and open it up. I'm just going to create a new project here, and I'm just going to call it Linktree Clone, just like that, and create a new project. So there we go. That's creating my project for me. It's empty at the moment, and we're going to have to add some files. So I'm just going to create a new HTML file. I'm going to call it index.html. I can actually just select this and it will give me the HTML extension. We need to give that extension to let our code editors know what kind of file we want to work with. And in this case, it's an HTML file. So I'm just going to call this Linktree clone, just like that. And of course, it's got all the boilerplate code for me. Okay, and now I'm just going to create a CSS file. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to call it styles because it's going to hold all our styles, CSS. So just like so. So great. Well, first off, I think we should create a header, right? So let's create a header, and that's just going to store our button so that we can share the link to our Linktree page if you choose to deploy it. So that's what my header is going to have. Let's format that a little bit better so it's more readable. And in here, well, I'm just going to create a div, and I'm going to give this the class of share button. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do. So we've got our header, and next I'm going to have a container that's going to hold everything else essentially. Okay, and make sure that it's in the middle of our page and is responsive for when we want to see it in mobile form. So let's go ahead and just call this container like so. So wonderful. Now we have our container, and in here I'm actually going to have another div that I'm going to give the class of image container, and it's going to hold our little avatar. So that's going to go in here. And then I'm also going to use an H1 element to just put Anya Kubo. So I'm just going to get all the structure in at the moment. So great. And in here, of course, we're going to have an image tag. It's going to have a source and also some alternative text for the visually impaired and screen readers. So Anya Kubo avatar, this is going to say. Okay, so we're gonna have to get an image. I'm just gonna go on the internet and take one of me from the free Code Camp website. So that's what I'm searching for now. So if I go on here, I'm just gonna take this image. I'm going to copy the image address and just put it in. Of course, if you have other images, you can put them directly in this project. If you don't have any hosted of you online, that is absolutely fine too. Okay, so two options to do that. I'm just gonna make this a little bit smaller so we can kind of see everything a little bit better. Okay, so there we go. Maybe I'll put this on 2 lines so that it fits and everyone knows exactly what is going in here. So at the moment, if we look at this online, so I'm just going to right click on this and we're going to copy the path. So copy path, we're going to get the absolute path, and then in our browsers, we're just going to paste that in. So that's what it looks like at the moment. Of course, we haven't added any styling. We're just kind of getting all the structure together, right? So that's what we're doing. Here's our console log, which we're not really going to be using for this beginning part. We're just going to be focusing on the elements. Okay, great. Let's carry on. The next thing I want to do is start putting in essentially little tiles, right? And we're going to also do that in the container. So let's go ahead and create our first tile. I'm going to give this the class of tile so we can style it up. And I'm just going to put in 3 for now. So 1, 2, 3, just like so. And I think it's now time to do a little styling. So first off, I'm just going to pick out the actual body tag. So let's pick that out. I'm going to make this a bit bigger. And I'm just going to get rid of any default styling by getting rid of the margin and the padding so we can start fresh. And I'm going to give my whole thing a background color. And the color I'm going to choose is, I'm just copying my own Linktree really. I'm going to copy it as closely as I can. And that's why I've given this just off black color. Next, let's actually link up our style sheet. So I'm going to use the link tag and make sure it's in the head. And I'm going to use the link tag to essentially link up my style sheet. So I'm going to put rel style sheet. And as the href, I'm going to put styles CSS. Okay, so now if we look in here, ta-da, that black has been applied. This is looking good. So we've done that. The next thing I want to do here actually is make sure that all the text that we're going to have is an off-white. So I'm just going to put 240, 240, 240 to give it an off-white color. Great. Now I want to center everything in here. So I'm going to use display flex. And because I want it to be centered, but in a column, so everything's stacked over each other, I'm going to use align items center and then flex direction column. And next, we're just going to make sure that our app has a hard-coded width so that it is able to center all the items. Without this, the items will not be centered. And finally, I'm just going to make sure that everything has the same font family in here. So I'm going to choose Verdana. And as a backup, I'm going to do Tahoma and sans serif, just in case the browser doesn't pick these two up. Okay, great. So we've essentially start the body to center everything. And by everything, I mean the header and the container. Everything in the container has not been centered. That's because we're going to have to add some styling to do that. But first, let's take care of the header. So actually what I'm going to do is just make the share button first so we can see it in here. So let's grab the share button. So just like that. And the share button, well, that is just going to have a width of 40 pixels. I'm going to make a circle, right? Height of also 40 pixels because that's how we make a circle, and a border radius of 20 pixels. And let's make it gray. So background color, RGB, 240, 240, 240, because that is what my Linktree page has. So there we go. We see the button, and now we want to make it go to the right side. So always be stuck at the right side of our header. So to do this, we're going to have to style the header, and we're going to have to give the header a width. So I'm going to grab the header like so, and I'm going to say that always the header is going to have 95% width, but also a max width, so that, you know, if we get to a certain width, it stops. So the max width this will ever be is 788 pixels, and that will allow us to just keep it nice when it's on a big browser. Okay, so that's what I did. And now to make the button always be to the right, I'm going to use display flex, justify content, flex, end. Okay, I'm just going to give this some padding so that, you know, everything's a little bit padded out, and space it out from the top by giving it a margin top of 15 pixels. So if we look at this now, great, there's our header. And as you will see, it will always be a max width of 788. Obviously, that's counting the padding. But if we make it smaller, it will be 95% width of the whole browser. Cool. So there we go. We're just constraining it. So that's what I've done. Let's carry on. So we have the header. I kind of want to do the same for the container, but it's going to be a little bit smaller than the header. So I'm going to give it a width of 91% of the browser width, and also a max width, this time of 680 pixels. So it's slightly smaller, a margin of 10 pixels. And again, I'm going to center everything using display flex. But this time I want it to be a column. So I'm going to do flex direction column, which means to center everything, I need to use align items center, not justify content, because justify content works from left to right and align items works from the other axis. But because we used flex direction column, that is what we use. If that doesn't make much sense, please do check out my full stack developer tutorial, where I explain this in a lot more detail, and I really go into detail on display flex. For now, let's carry on. So great. So there's our container. As you will see, once again, it's got a max width. And if we go smaller, you will see its width is 91%. So 91%, 91%. And as soon as we reach its max width of 680 pixels, it stops expanding. Cool. And everything is stacked on top of each other like a column, which means that if we now start adding tiles, so let's grab the tile class, because we've given the tile class to these three divs, so that all three of them are going to have the same styling. And I want my tiles to essentially fill the whole container. So I'm going to give them a width of 100%. I'm going to give them a background color of a lighter gray. So again, I'm just copying these colors from my own Linktree. Let's give it a margin of 7 pixels, a border radius of 17 pixels to soften out the edges. And for now, I'm just going to give it a height, but we're going to get rid of this later. Okay, because we kind of want this to be based on the text, but just so we can see the tiles, that is what they look like. Great. So now if I want to put some stuff into the tiles, let's go ahead and do that. So what does each tile need to have? Well, each tile, I'm actually going to change these to be A tags, because I want to be able to click on the tile and it takes me somewhere. So I really should be using A tags for this. And I'm going to give this an href, and it will essentially take me somewhere if I click on the tile. I'm going to leave this blank for now so that it doesn't really interfere what we're doing, but let's just give all of them an href attribute too. Okay, so there we go. I'm just going to open this out so we can start putting code in. So I want each one to essentially have an icon. So I'm going to make a div, and I'm going to give it the class icon, so we can put in different icons. And it's also going to have a paragraph element, so we can put some text. And the last thing I want to have is another div, this time with a class of tile share button, as it's going to be slightly different to our share button. Okay, so there we go. Those are the three things you need to put into each tile. So if you want to add more tiles, just make sure to have this code in. And of course, the styling that we write for all of these will be applied to each element. Okay, so reusability and consistency are happening here. Now, the first tile, I think this should be for my YouTube channel. So I'm just going to put YouTube as the text. The second one I'm going to put as Twitter. And the third one is going to be coding tips. So coding tips, just like that. Okay, and if we look now, it kind of looks like this. Okay, we don't really like this. Everything's also stacked on top of each other, and we don't want that. We want it to be next to each other, right? Because there's one, there's the other, there's the third. So let's use Justify Flex to do this. So on the actual tile itself, I'm going to use Justify Content space between, but we need to initialize it with Display Flex, otherwise that will not work. So now if we check it out, ta-da! Everything in here is spaced out evenly. So my div icon, my YouTube paragraph, and the tile sharing button. Great. While we're here, I'm also just going to get rid of the styling on the A elements. So let's pick that out. So every A element, I'm just going to get rid of the default styling. So I'm going to put text decoration none, and just make sure that the color is the same white. So 240, 240, 240, just like that. And let's check it out. Great. Now the font family isn't being applied. Let's have a look at why. That's because we need to put commas there. My fault. Sorry about that. Okay, and wonderful. So this is looking good. Of course, if you want to make the header a bit smaller, I think we probably should, because it doesn't really look like my link tree much. I'm going to get the H1 tag, and I'm just going to say that any H1 tags in my document are going to have the font size of 20 pixels. And I'm also going to just give them a margin bottom that I'm going to choose myself rather than having the default margin of 30 pixels. So now if we look in here, amazing. This is looking so much better. Next, let's work on the image. So the image looks like this. However, I do want it to be a circle, right? So for this, we're going to have to pick out the image container that it lives in. So let's grab that. And just down here, I'm going to grab the image container, and I'm going to say that it's always going to have a height of 96 pixels, a width of 96 pixels, a border radius, because we want to make it a circle, of 48 pixels, and everything that comes outside of this, I want to hide, which is why I'm going to give it overflow hidden. And now you might have used an image that's either larger or bigger than mine. So I'm going to grab the image container and say that any image that lives inside of it, so that is how you would write that. I'm essentially saying that any image, so this, that lives inside of the element with the class of image container, I'm just going to stretch it out. As mine is a square, it doesn't matter if I choose the height or width, but you know, I would suggest using the smaller value, either the height or the width, and giving it a 100% value. Okay, so now if we look in here, amazing. That is looking so good. Next, let's create the share button. So once again, I'm just going to take this class of tile share button, and I'm just going to, maybe let's put it where the tile is, grab the tile share button, and all I'm going to do is say that I want it to be a width of 40 pixels, a height of 40 pixels, and let's make it a circle. So I'm going to give it a border radius of 20 pixels, and let's give it a background color of a gray that I have taken from my link tree. It's RGB 52, 52, 52. So at the moment, this is what my button looks like. I'm just going to space it out so it's not so squashed to the sides by giving it a margin of 8 pixels. So now that we've put stuff in the tile, I'm essentially going to get rid of this hard-coded height just to make sure that everything is definitely kind of centered. Great. So this is, of course, looking awesome. I just want to put in icons here as well as here, and I'm going to show you how to do that using SVG paths. So I've already gone ahead and found some. Please, I'll go ahead and just go to this URL, fontawesomeicons.com, SVG icons, and then I've chosen Twitter logo light. You can of course search for whichever logo you want, and it's going to literally give us the SVG code for this. So I'm simply going to take all of this and go back to our project, and let's find the Twitter one. Here's the icon. So let's open it up and just paste all of that. Now we're going to have to change some things because at the moment it's got a black background. So I'm going to change this to be white. And then I think somewhere else as well, or maybe not. Let's just double check. Okay, that seems to be fine. So save this and let's check out what that looks like. Okay, so we can't see it. This is because we need to give the container that it's in, the icon container, a width and a height. So let's grab that icon. So dot icon class icon, and I'm just going to give it a width of 44 pixels and a height of 44 pixels and a margin. So this is a shortcut for adding margin to the top and bottom and then the sides. Okay, so that's what I've done. The top and bottom have 4 pixels and the sides have 8 pixels margin. So we've got our Twitter SVG. This is looking pretty cool. Let's go ahead and find our one for YouTube. So I'm just going to search YouTube just like so. And let's find a YouTube icon. I'm going to go with YouTube logo light. And this is the one that I'm going to choose. It's a long one this time, so just copy all of that and then go back to your index HTML and find the icon for YouTube. Let's open it up and paste all of that. And once again, the stroke, I'm just going to change to white. And this time I think we're going to have to again, because I think there's 2 lines being used here. So just change that black hex code to be the string white. So save that now and refresh, and wonderful. And finally, one for coding tips. Well, this time I'm just going to put an arrow, I think. So let's search for arrow. Okay, and this is the one that I want. So the white one, so this means we won't have to do much. Just grab all of this, go back to the code and find the icon for the coding tips and just paste that in. The code will be available to you after this tutorial. So if you're struggling to find those, just please take my code. They might have changed their website and who knows. Okay, so there you go. I'm just going to change the size of this. So let's make sure that it's the same as this one, perhaps. Let's try that out. Let's see what it looks like. So just grab the width and the height, hit save. Oh, that's way too large. Okay, so we're going to have to do some customizing here. I think maybe just give it the height and width of the actual icon, which is 44. Just like that, and wonderful. So we've got it. Now I just want to add an icon for the share buttons too, which again I found actually by inspecting Linktree. So here's my Linktree. I'm going to show you how to do this. So this one right here and this one I'm going to inspect, and then we've got the SVG, right? So there it is, and I'm going to just copy the element. So copy element, and now back on here, I'm going to paste that in to the share button div on our header, just like so. So let's check out what this looks like on ours. Okay, it's white at the moment, and we're going to have to style it up a little bit, but I also want white ones in here. So let's go back here. And this time on each tile, so there's one tile. Here's the share button. I'm going to paste that in just like so. Hit save, and great. So now let's do some custom styling on these SVGs. In fact, I'm going to do it in the style sheet so we can apply it to all of them. On the tile share button, I'm going to say that any SVG that lives inside of it is going to have a margin left of 12 pixels and a margin top of 10 pixels just to space it nicer in the actual circle. So this is what it should look like now. This is good. I like that. And I think we can apply the same one to here, but we do need to change the color. So let's have a think about this. We can do it in the HTML. That is fine. Or we can do it here. It really is up to you. I'm just going to do it in here. Why not? So this time on the share button, let's find the share button. There it is. So I'm going to paste that, but change this to just be share button so that any SVG that lives in the share button is going to have the same styling, but the color of it, I'm essentially doing color for text essentially, because that is how you apply colors to SVGs. You don't use background color, and I've just made it black. So great. So now let's add this to the other buttons. So back in here, I'm going to take this whole SVG that lives in the tile share button. So take the whole thing, copy, and then find the other tile share button and put that in, and then find the last tile share button and put that in. So there we go. We're nearly there. This is looking good. Now I just want these tiles to kind of get bigger when we hover over them. So for this, I'm going to have to get the actual tile. So let's find where the tiles are just to keep everything kind of in the same place. And I'm going to do hover. Okay, and I'm going to transform the scale to be 1.02 size, as big as it currently is. And the transition for this, I want it to kind of bounce really. So I'm going to use cubic Bezier and put in these bounce. This will essentially give it a kind of bounce. And then I want this to happen for 0.2 seconds. So that now if I hover over these, they kind of bounce in, just like on the actual Linktree. Now, one more thing, I want to be able to actually go to YouTube if I click on this. So let's put in the hrefs. So let's find the first one. This is our tile. This is our whole tile. So this is for YouTube. So I want it to go to, well, you guessed it, YouTube. So www.youtube.com. Ania Kubo is my YouTube channel, as you know, because you're watching it. So now if I save this and refresh, it will take me to YouTube. Great. So let's do the same for the other ones. I'm just going to copy all of this and adjust this. So this one should be Twitter. And my Twitter is this. And then the last one, well, this is actually different. This is actually to my affiliate link for bytes.dev. So I've just put that in like so. Great. So at the moment, this is looking good. These all work. And if you click on them, it will take you somewhere else. Now, this is kind of interesting. I want us to be able to copy this to the clipboard, right? If we click on here, I want to click this and get the link of YouTube without going to YouTube. But this element is nested inside the A tag. So if I click on here, it will still take me to YouTube. I need to prevent this from happening. And for this, we're going to do a tiny bit of JavaScript. If you're not familiar with JavaScript, I'm going to talk you through it and you can just take this code. It really isn't that much, but I think it's like a cool thing to do. And I really wanted to show you. So for this, we're going to have to first off link up an app.js file. So essentially our JavaScript file, so app.js. And now we're just going to create a file. So new, it's going to be a JavaScript file called app.js. And what I'm going to do is, well, I'm going to look at my document. So let's grab the document interface. And I'm going to use query selector all, because I want to find all the elements with the class. So we use dot for class of tile share button. And once we have them, I'm going to save them as share button so we can work with it in our JavaScript. Now I'm going to write a function called copy text. Okay, and I'm also going to say that if we click, so we're going to get the share buttons, and for each button, or let's call it a share button that exists in that array, I want to grab the share button and add an event listener to it. So we can listen out for clicks on it. So we're going to pass through the click event. And if we click on any share button, I want to copy the text. We're passing through the function as a callback function. So this function will get called only if we click on any element that is a share button. So if I console log this out, I'm just going to show you what this looks like. Console log share buttons. And let's look in here. Ta-da! We get a node list of the 3 share buttons. So 1, 2, 3. So we've successfully got them, and we've successfully added an event listener to each one. Let's put this on another line so you can see it better. Now, well, like I said, we want to prevent button going to the site, and we can do so with prevent default. But of course, we need to pass through the event into here. So just like that. So that will prevent that from happening. Next, we need to get the actual link. So I can actually save that data on the button. So let's go ahead and do that now. So here's tile share button, and I'm going to make a custom attribute called link. And I'm just going to grab the href of this and do the same on here. And grab the href of this so we can get the link. We could have done it a different way. We could have gone, into the parent of this element and got that href, but I don't want to overcomplicate it for beginners. But if you're more advanced, you can do that too. So once again, let's grab this href just like so. So great. So we've got the links, we've added custom attributes, and now I can grab it. If I click on the button, I can get this. Wherever I click, this is whatever I'm clicking. I'm going to get attribute, so use the method get attribute to find the attribute of link and get its value and save it under link. So now we've got that link. In fact, if I console log it out, I'm just going to show you. So now you'll see if I click on the share button, it won't take me to YouTube, and I'm console logging out the link. So once again, clicking on the share button, you have to click on the share button, and we're going to get the link, which is the custom attribute that we added, and we're just going to console log it out. So refresh. If I click on here, I'm not clicking on the share link, so it takes me to YouTube. But if I click on the share button, it just console logs out the URL, so essentially the value of the attribute of link, and doesn't go to YouTube because we prevented that from happening using prevent default. Great. Now to stick this in our clipboard, our copy clipboard. So this is going to be an async function. So let's use try, and I'm going to catch any errors. So this is the try catch method, and I'm going to console error any errors. Okay. And this piece of code that I'm going to use is essentially going to take a little bit of time to do its thing, okay? So it is an async method, and it's going to come back with a promise, but essentially we're going to copy this to the clipboard. We're going to have to wait for this to resolve, so I've used the await keyword, which means we need to make this an async function, okay? Awaits can only live inside async functions. So that's what we're going to do. And we can even have a little alert to just let us know that this has been copied. So copied the text, and then let's get our link. Okay, great. So that is my whole async function. Let's check it out. So now let's go here, hit refresh. And if I click on here, copy the text YouTube. And if I click on here, copy the text Twitter. And if I click on here, it'll actually take me to Twitter. Let's just check all of them though. Copied text, that's right, that's what I want to copy. And this will take me to the affiliate link. Great. So there we go, we've done it. We've made a Linktree clone. Of course, now you have the knowledge to go and add more tiles if you wish. If you want to make this yourself and you don't want to use their forms, you just want to customize this and make it your own, then please go ahead and do that. This is what it looks like on smaller browsers. And this is what it looks like on larger browsers. And once you deploy this, so say you want to host this on a website, you can go ahead and do that. Once it's deployed, then please go ahead, use the same copy method to attach that to this button, which will share the link for your whole link tree. Okay? But that is something you can do by yourself now. Hopefully, if you can't, just shoot me a message and I can help you through it. But hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully you have the knowledge to do that now. So wonderful, I'm really happy with this. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and I hope to see you again soon.